Hello, welcome back. Right, this isn't the video I was planning to do. My plan for today had been to come home and work on one of the multi-format videos that I was doing, but that I've been doing. But it's been so hot. The journey home today was horrendous. The train from Liverpool Street was absolutely packed. It was like an oven. It went slowly. By the time I got home to the station, a bus didn't turn up. Two buses didn't turn up. The third one turned up, and everyone waiting for the two that didn't turn up all piled onto that one. So the bus journey home was absolutely exhausting. And by the time I got home, I just needed to go and have a kip. And I was that exhausted. I only woke up about 45 minutes ago. Lazy fat sod. Anyway, so I'm not going to have the time to get all the bits and pieces out, put them back, do the videos, etc. So I'll hopefully get those started sometime over the weekend. So I've changed just a quick video. That's a lie, this is not a quick video. You can see how long it is, because I tend to go on and on and on in these things. Now you can see the title of the video, and what I've decided to do today instead of that multi-format one is to concentrate and perhaps give you a bit of information about what my favourite games through the years have been on the systems following the 8-bit microcomputer era. So I thought it would just be interesting, and as ever, please shout in with your recollections and your personal favourites on all the systems across the board. Now, there are some games that aren't included. There's no Grand Theft Auto games, there's no Call of Duty games, there's no Red Dead Redemption, etc. That doesn't mean to say that they weren't fantastic games. They were. It's just I've just limited it to just a couple. Right. Okay. So I've mentioned before that the Commodore Amiga and Atari ST completely passed me by. I know nothing about those machines, so I went straight from the Spectrum to a Sega or Master System. And my favourite games on that I played the most would have been the Master System version of Sonic the Hedgehog, the original Sonic the Hedgehog, Mickey Mouse in, now is it called Castle of Illusion or World of Illusion? I can never bloody remember. And also Populous. Now Populous I'd forgotten about until recently. I've seen David Retro Games played Birdsall, put a load of links to his favourite God games, such as Powermonger, etc., Populous, on his Facebook page, which reminded me that, yeah, I really enjoyed the Sega Master System version of that. Now, I didn't have a Sega Mega Drive. My brother had one, and he tended to kind of have the sports games on it. He had one of the NHL hockey. That was a really good laugh, 2-player, and also the early PGA Tour golf games before they were called Tiger Woods and then Rory McIlroy, I think it was. So we used to play those a hell of a lot as well. Obviously the Sonic as well, and he had a shoot 'em up that I can't remember for the life of me what it is. Now this is the problem with this. I don't do scripts or notes or anything, purely because I can't read my own handwriting and my eyesight's shagged anyway. But that means that I've forgotten what that particular game is. I shall mention it in a pinned comment once it comes to me, but I remember it being really good and me being really bad at it. Now I did have a Super Nintendo SNES, and my favourite games on that were, I absolutely loved Shadowrun. I thought that was a fantastic game. Really put a load of hours into that game. Now I also enjoyed Super Striker, Super Tennis, and I'd never really played the Zelda games on it. It always looked like they weren't my cup of tea, and even to this day they're still not. I can see why people like them, but often I never really I've only ever bought one Zelda game, which I'll get to sort of later in the video. But my parents went on holiday to Florida in 1992 and didn't take me with them. But I asked them if they'd bring me a game back. Now, of course, the US Super Nintendo is different shape to the European ones and the Japanese ones. And that meant that the cartridges were a different shape. Instead of being like rounded, they're kind of square and blocky. And in order to play them, you needed a special adapter. And I always remember it. You plugged the adapter into the SNES port, cartridge port. You plugged a normal SNES cartridge into the back. And then you plugged the American cartridge onto the top. And then you could play the game. And the game was called Soul Blazer, which was kind of like a Mario RPG game. And it was absolutely brilliant. I remember putting a load of effort into that game as well. Now, these were, like I say, these are all things off the top of my head. And as soon as I move on or I finish the video, I know I'm going to be going, you should have said that. But other games on the Super Nintendo that got a lot of play. I really enjoyed Stunt Race FX. I thought that was really great game, fantastic game. I never had Mario Kart until later on the N64. So I didn't really experience the SNES version of Mario Kart until I got a SNES Mini just after Christmas. Now, the next two systems I bought after the Super Nintendo were the Atari Jaguar and the Panasonic 3DO, the big square sort of metal one. And at the time, you know, they were met with sort of like ridicule, really, and there are some people nowadays who think they were abysmal machines, and when they're actually not. They did have some really good games for them. The games I played most on the Jaguar was the Jaguar conversion of Doom, which I thought was absolutely amazing. That was my first ever experience of Doom. It just blew me away. I also played a hell of a lot of Tempest 2000. Absolutely wonderful game, very psychedelic. Brilliant Jeff Minter game. Now, if you were of the Xbox 360 generation, there was kind of like a Tempest-esque game released by Jeff Minter called Space Giraffe, and if Tempest 2000 was over the top psychedelic, Space Giraffe just topped it. It was just wow with its visuals and its music and stuff. Really great achievement, but I didn't think it was quite as playable as Tempest 2000. Now, I said that I missed out on the Amiga and ST scene, and the Atari Jaguar was where I first experienced cannon fodder, and I thought that was so much fun. It had so much character. I never managed to get very far in it. I always either blew myself up, accidentally shot my men. But yeah, it was just brilliant. So much fun. And then on the 3DO, what games were there that I played an awful lot of back then? Well, the 3DO was one of the first machines that I ever saw any kind of FMV on. And so the versions of FIFA that were released, and the very first Madden game on the 3DO I had, and they were like really spectacularly good looking back in the day with their presentation and stuff. It just blew me away. And I remember when I bought the 3DO, it was in HMV in Oxford Street, and they had like a bank of TV screens that showed the whole picture of the game in motion, and it was huge, this wall that they had displaying it, and that's what made me sort of buy it. And it wasn't cheap, but I had more money than sense back then. I had a very well paid job, and I lived at home with mum and dad, and I paid them a pittance in rent, and the rest of my wages was mine to do what I pleased with. Return Fire was very good, excellent in fact. Great game, especially if you could get a second player and play it. And Rise of the Valkyries and the sound of people being squashed in their tents as you run them over was absolutely brilliant. Now, if you're not familiar with the game, just look it up on YouTube, 3DO Return Fire. I also had a game, a first-person shooter called Killing Time, which was really quite good in the way that it set itself up. It was sort of like set in a haunted mansion and like a mystery, ghosts and stuff like that. But there were segments of FMV playing within the game, so as you walked through, you'd get like the ghosts would be presented in FMV, or the flashbacks would present themselves on the screen to you. And it was really good. And it was also the first system I played Alone in the Dark on. it had been out a while by then. I think it came out on the PC or the Amiga or whatever first, and it passed me by until the 3DO, and I got a version of it then. So I think it was a couple of years old by then, and really, really, really loved it. Now, PlayStation came after that, the original PlayStation. Now, I loved the Broken Sword games, the first two. Can't actually remember what the first one's called, but the second one's called The Smoking Mirror, the old point and click adventures, which were absolutely fantastic. And I bought one a couple of years back on my tablet, an Android re-release, and I had just as much fun with it then as I did back in the day. It was absolutely brilliant. What a sort of fantastic game that was. Other PlayStation games, I bought Final Fantasy VII just because of all the hype behind it, but I didn't get on with it that much. You know, perhaps I should have put a little bit more time into it, but I didn't. So there you go. Now I'm struggling to think of right. Okay. I also really, really, really enjoyed Ready to Rumble Boxing. It's a very, very basic boxing game, cartoony arcade style boxing game. But it had, hang on a minute, was that on the PlayStation or was that the Dreamcast? Oh. Anyway, I'm going to assume it was on the PlayStation, but please correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, had really, really great fun with that game. I'm not a huge beat 'em up fan, but I got the original Tekken games when they first came out, purely just to see what they were like, and whenever I had mates around for beers and stuff, just to have like Tekken sort of like tournaments. And they were, the first couple were absolutely brilliant. Jaw-dropping graphics, you know, I'm a person who sort of like started with Way of the Exploding Fist and stuff like that, and wasn't used to anything of that sort of calibre. So, that was the PlayStation 1. PlayStation 2, I get the waters a bit muddied here, because soon after buying a PlayStation 1, I also bought an original, soon after buying the PlayStation 2, I also bought the original Xbox, and soon after that I bought a GameCube as well, and a lot of the games were released on each system, so I'm trying to work out which ones I had on which systems. Now, PlayStation 2, I know the first game that I really, really got an awful lot of enjoyment of, and these first two I'm going to mention are probably two of my favourite games of all time. The first one is PsyOps, the Mindgate Conspiracy, which was an absolutely amazing third-person shooter where during the course of the game you accrued spiritual powers like telekinesis, pyrokinesis, the ability to move into and possess other sort of like characters in the game and make them do stupid things like jump off roofs and stuff, kind of like you could do in Dishonored. It was absolutely amazing, and I'm shocked that it never ever got a sequel. And if you've never checked it out, it starts off, until you get the powers, it's quite a sort of like straightforward third-person shooter, but once you've accrued everything and then you complete the game, you can go back and start from the beginning and do it all again, but this time with all the powers, and it is so much fun. The second game that I played and think is absolutely brilliant, even to this day, although I haven't played it for over 10 years, and it was, but I've watched YouTube videos of it, was Burnout 3 Takedown. What an absolutely brilliant game that one is. It's just had everything. Excitement, you know, you could race, take people out, etc. Well, I never used to do the race bit very often. I just used to go on the like crash courses where you had to see how much carnage you could cause, and you know, how many times you could, you know, just pile into a junction driving a truck and just make it go rolling over and over and over and carry on exploding other cars, etc. It was brilliant, and it still is, and I wish it's a game I could revisit. Now, I know other Burnout games came out later on later systems. We did have Burnout Paradise, but my son played that far more than I did. So yeah, PsyOps, the Burnout 3 Takedown. I'm also going to say, even though I thought it was really quite tricky, Ico. I never got very far in Ico. It was one of those ones, you all know Ico, it's the sort of prequel-ish to Shadow of the Colossus and The Last Guardian. And it's an absolutely brilliant game, sort of like really evocative, really atmospheric, great storyline, great style and everything. Like I say, I never managed to get very far on it, but when I was, what do you want? Go through the back door, you stupid dog. I've got the patio door closed there, and it's 5 feet away from the, and he always does this, he ain't worked out that if you can't get through the patio door, you can just go through the back door. Thick dog. Ico was just a stunning game, and again, I've been watching it recently on YouTube. Wonderful, wonderful game. So, let's go on to the original Xbox. Now, Fahrenheit by Quantic Dream. I absolutely loved that game. I'd never seen or played anything like it before. It drew me straight in, and ever since then I've been a fan of Quantic Dream games. I've just finished Detroit Become Human, which again is just a masterpiece in my opinion. But yeah, Fahrenheit had everything. Great storyline, great action, a little bit too many set pieces, etc. But you know, they didn't like quick time events, what they call it. Yeah, didn't really ruin anything, and it also had boobies, which was great. So yeah, Black by Electronic Arts, this third-person shooter. I thought that was amazingly insane and intense, and had a great time with that game. Again, how it's never had a sequel, I'm not too sure, but it should have had. It should have had many sequels, because it's just great. Now, I also used to play, I like my golf games, and the original Xbox had Microsoft Lynx Golf, which, although Tiger Woods and those games, I really put a lot of hours into that. That's because there were no Microsoft Lynx games. Back then, that version of, Microsoft Lynx on the original Xbox, you know, was much better than the PGA Tour games. And it was the first golf game I ever played online. Now, golf doesn't sound like it should be a fun game, multiplayer. It sounds like it should be a boring game, but it isn't. If you get with the right crowd, it's absolutely brilliant. It was a lot less arcadey in feel than some of the earlier PGA Tour games. It's not to say that I didn't enjoy them, I did. And yeah, it was great, but Microsoft just decided they weren't going to do anything more with it. And also, I'm not going to mention Halo, because I was never a really great fan of the Halo games. I can see why people do like them, but they weren't for me. I'll have to come back to the third one, because like I said, I didn't have any notes. Now, I've missed something out before those two. I should have gone with the PlayStation. I should have followed that with the Dreamcast. I did have a Sega Dreamcast. Now, my absolute favourite game on the Dreamcast was Sega Bass Fishing. I thought that was an excellent game. Power Stone from Capcom. Me and my son, we used to play that quite a lot. That was really good fun. Metropolis Street Racer, the forerunner to the Project Gotham games. Yeah, absolutely brilliant game. A brilliant system that really shouldn't have failed like it did, because it was capable of so much more. And after the Dreamcast, the Sega just stopped, didn't they? They just decided not to release consoles anymore, and it was such a shame, because it was great. Shenmue, I didn't play a Shenmue game until Shenmue 2 on the original Xbox, which was confusing because obviously Shenmue 1 never came out on it. Now, and on that you got kind of like the story so far pastiche of all the best bits of Shenmue 1. And I also had a Nintendo 64, and I've missed that one out as well, haven't I? Right, so I've got to go on that, and I've just recently repurchased an N64. Now, on the N64, I loved GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, but nowadays I've got both. They're actually quite difficult to play. I actually find the N64 analog stick quite cumbersome to use, twitchy, etc., and it doesn't sort of play and feel as well as I sort of remember them. Mario Kart 64, I know a lot of people don't like it, but I loved it. I thought it was absolutely brilliant, and I still play it every now and then to this day. Mario Tennis I picked up recently. That's a very, very, very good laugh. And also I used to play an awful lot of Wave Race 64 because it was a great game. I used to love it. Trying to shave extra 1/100ths of a second off your previous high score was absolutely brilliant. Now I can jump forward again and go back to the GameCube. Right, I was going to say Resident Evil 4 for GameCube. In fact, yeah, I will. I'll give this will get a double mention. Resident Evil 4 for the GameCube. Now, I'd had the previous Resident Evil games and Code Veronica on the Dreamcast 1 and 2. Never had 3 on the PlayStation. And whereas, yeah, I could see how really sort of good they were, the control system just done me in. I just couldn't get used to it. I'd run around shooting the sky or the floor or both and nothing in between. And it was that in-between bit where the baddies usually were. So I could never get very far in it. But Resident Evil 4 changed that, changing the storyline. The monsters were called something different, weren't they? The fact that the control system had been reworked made it much more accessible to me, and I thought that game was absolutely spectacular. And again, I always point people to when they like slag the GameCube off. I always say, well, have you seen it? Resident Evil 4. Now, Beyond Good and Evil was also a really fun game on the GameCube. Really, really did enjoy that. Yeah, it was really, really good fun. I can't even remember what game it was I was just talking about. My mind's gone blank. Never mind. Right, okay. And the other game I was thinking, but I've forgotten that, but I've remembered that game for the PS2 that I was going to say. It was going to be Splinter Cell Chaos Theory. I wasn't too keen on the first Splinter Cell. The second one, Pandora Tomorrow, was better, but Chaos Theory was absolutely spectacular. So, yeah, back to the GameCube. What other games did I really, really, really enjoy on that? I've forgotten. I'll have to come back to the GameCube. Hang on, let me just let the bloody dog in. Yoda, come on. Come on, in. Come on. In, come on, in you come. Silly hound. Right, now stay in. Don't you dare knock the camera. Yeah, good boy. Right, so from the GameCube, Xbox, then and PlayStation 2, then moved on to the Xbox 360 and the PS3, and no, I'm not moving on yet. For the Xbox as well, Knights of the Old Republic, as I'm a huge Star Wars fan, I really, really loved that. Right, now moving on to the Xbox 360, the first two Mass Effect games. I got those on the strength that they were created by the people that did Knights of the Old Republic, and absolutely fantastic. I also used to play a lot of a couple of the Project Gotham racing games that came out. I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 or 3 and 4, but they were really, really good. But I didn't used to play them solely for that, because in the arcade in one of the garages you could play Geometry Wars, if you remember that, and I used to play that more than anything. Really, really, really good fun. So Mass Effect, Project Gotham. I also used to play a lot of Pro Evolution Soccer online. I was always a Pro Evo person until recently. And also the Tiger Woods PGA Tour games, as I've mentioned before, because I really, really, really enjoyed them. This is the thing, it's quite a trick to, because I had so many games on these systems, it's quite a trick out off the top of your head, just naming 3 or 4. Now for the PlayStation 3, I had and enjoyed. Heavy Rain, going back to Quantic Dream, and Detroit Become Human. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm back. I just had a mega coughing fit and had to go and get a drink of iced water. Do apologise for that. How much battery have I got left? Right, okay. PlayStation 3, Assassin's Creed 2. I played the first Assassin's Creed and wasn't overwhelmed by it, and Assassin's Creed 2 I got for like 10 quid or something like that, second hand, and I thought it was an amazing game. I really, really enjoyed it. It was fantastic. My daughter's birthday balloons have just hoved into view at the side of the screen there. Let's get those out of the way so they don't disturb me. So Heavy Rain, yeah. Assassin's Creed 2, Batman Arkham Asylum was really, really good. I really, really enjoyed that game. I really, really enjoyed that game. It was great fun. I never played any of the sequels though, I don't think. I also had a Nintendo Wii at the same time, and one of the best games on that was Wii Bowling. I absolutely played that game to absolute death. Now, bearing in mind my children were very young at the time as well, I got some games that I got an awful lot of play out of. That you're probably going to laugh at. Cooking Mama, if you ever remember that, the cooking game where you had to chop vegetables up using the motion controls, etc. That was really quite therapeutic and good fun. Mario and Sonic at the Beijing Olympic Games as well was a great laugh. I thought that was a great giggle. Now, I mentioned earlier on the GameCube when I said about that, Resident Evil 4. The Wii version of Resident Evil 4 is absolutely spectacular. Being able to use the nunchuck and the Wiimote to do your aiming, etc. It just adds so much more to the gameplay, I think. And I really, really, really enjoyed that game. Tiger Woods... No, not Tiger Woods. What am I talking about? Yeah, it was Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods 08, I think it was. Where you used the Wii mode to mimic a golf swing, an actual proper golf swing, and it worked really, really, really well. But of course, you couldn't play online on the Wii. Well, I never played online on the Wii. But that was great fun, really good. Some of the skill games that were included with it that weren't in other versions as well were really, really a good laugh. And of course, Mario Kart Wii. We had so much fun with that. Now, I've not had a Nintendo console since. I am thinking about getting a Switch. But what I did have, handhelds, Nintendo DS. And earlier I mentioned that I wasn't a huge fan of the Zelda games. But when I bought my DS, it came with the Phantom Hourglass, Legend of Zelda Phantom Hourglass. And I thought that was a really, really clever game. And I really enjoyed that some of the things some of the puzzles, like actually using the stylus to draw on the screen, then closing the DS together and opening it up again, and it would be like transferring the print from one screen to another, was really good. Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, absolutely fantastic, fun little game that was. Being sat on the bus shouting "Objection" was fun. I really, really enjoyed that game. And of course there was brain training as well, which was good fun, but it just goes to prove to you how thick you are, or at least how thick I am, because I could never do very well on that. I did have an original Game Boy back in the day. Spider-Man was quite good, Tetris, but those are the only games I really sort of used to play on it. And also RoboCop, that was really, really good. And that leads us up to the current day, PlayStation 4, which I've kind of become disillusioned with the current gen of consoles and stuff, because of the amount of time you have to wait to download something, the amount of disk space it takes up and stuff. But I do appreciate that there are some really, really good games out there. The Last Guardian was fantastic to watch, but a bit of a one-trick pony, but really, really nice. Doom was good fun for a while, the remake of it. The South Park, the Fractured Butthole, I really, really enjoyed. And of course, I mentioned earlier that I've just finished Detroit Become Human. Now, I think that that draws this very, very long video to a close. Now, some of you may wonder about my choices, etc. I've obviously missed out some games that are very, very, very good, but this is a personal, subjective list. So I'm interested to hear what your favourite games across the board were. Thank you ever so much for watching. If you've got this far, thank you so much for staying the distance, because I do ramble on in these things. I apologise that I've had to chop and change and go backwards and forwards and stuff. But like I said, I don't script things and write stuff down or make notes. It's all out of this big fat bald head as it comes into it, basically. So, please, if you like the video, please let me know. If you wish to subscribe, please do so. But if you do subscribe, please, please, please take the time to join in with the conversation, because that's what it's all about. Okay, finally, take care of yourselves. Have a cracking weekend. Goodbye.